Welcome to How Not to DM. I'm your host, Derek. Thanks for joining me on my quest to interview the very best Dungeon Masters on this plane of existence. We'll start with Jason, since you're on my left, with the first question, which is, tell us a little bit about yourself and your D&D/TTRPG backstory.
Hi, I'm Jason Russell from Critical Dice. You can find me at Critical Dice on Instagram and Heaven Help Us TikTok, and also the things that I create, sell, and distribute at thecriticaldice.com. Dice subscriptions, merch, and even chainmail leggings. Well, I mean, they're chainmail printed, but you get the idea. I first started playing D&D in 1989 because I'm the world's oldest man. At least it feels like it sometimes in this community, all you whippersnappers, you and your 2000s birthday dates. I in middle school gymnasium before school, and I was hooked. That was second edition, or no, maybe first. Second edition was high school. Played all through college. My college roommate was our DM, and we would, flit away the hours we should have been studying or sleeping, playing D&D, and exploring the amazing system that was 2.0. Been a lifelong, tabletop role player and D&D player, and dipped my toe in being a GM in college. As I know you know very well, Derek, just getting married, having kids, and so that had to go on the shelf for a while. And right about the time that 5th edition came out and Critical Role and Stranger Things, I got back into it really heavy, and now it's my whole personality. So that's good. Nice and succinct. I'm playing for a very long time. I've taught my kids. I've taught numerous teenagers how to play, and other students with some of the things that I do. And I honestly really love this community and love the creativity and the storytelling that gets to happen in games like D&D.
Yeah, me too. And the good news is you're in good company. Anybody who's on the show or listening to the show also makes it their whole personality, so don't worry about that.
Oh, good.
You found our people, Jason.
Yeah, you have. You have indeed. It is very safe. Yes. Quincy, how about you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Quincy. I do Quincy's Tavern on social media and everything. And for me, with D&D, I'm very new. I'm actually very new to the D&D community and just TTRPG in general. I was a very, I guess how Jason puts it, nerd adjacent, of just D&D adjacent for the longest time through college and everything. And I went to theater school, and part of theater, obviously, as practices and things, are improv games, or on the fly, like how to stay in character, how to create a character on the spot, and just kind of yes and other people on stage with you. And so as I was looking up different things to do that, I was a big fan of Geek and Sundry and their tabletop games, and that they showed that they did. And on my recommendations would be Critical Role, like the early Critical Role videos. And so I would watch that and watch compilations of what people put as funny moments or just really interesting things. And I'm like, what is this they're playing? Obviously they're playing, D&D. But the more I learned about it, I was like, this is literally improv with dice. Like, they're just sitting down and they're acting with each other, and they're just yes-anding everything with dice. And the dice literally just say how far it goes, or it's like the director. And I'm like, that is so fascinating to me. I'm like, I like that. So I would just appreciate it from afar, because no one that I knew around me knew how to play or really liked to be honest. It wasn't really until after creating Quincy and the whole TikTok persona and that type of content that I was reached out to by Kevin from Dice Cream Sandwich, who was like, hey, I'm putting together fantasy TikTokers or D&D TikTokers to play a game. I kind of want to, do that on Twitch. I think it'd be kind of fun. And I'm like, sure. I have no idea how to play. I created a Quincy as a bard the first time through, did not know how to do spell slots, and did the whole debacle of casting a spell and a cantrip, as a bonus action kind of thing, and trying to figure out how to work all that up. And to me, if I don't know how to play a game, or what I feel like I embarrass myself in a way of playing the game improperly, I was like, never again will I do that. Never again will I feel ignorant about the situation that I'm putting myself into. So I kind of just head first deep end dove into everything TTRPG, specifically D&D 5e, because that's all I was familiar with, and learned all the rules, like learned, all the connotations of, like, somatic versus verbal versus, the components that you kind of need, like how, like, the deep end of, like, min-maxing your characters and what combinations can go together, et cetera, et cetera. Probably since, like, I think, when was that? I was like early 2020, I think, was my first one shot. And I've mostly only played one shots since then, with one campaign that's kind of like on a bit of a hiatus right now just because of scheduling. When you obviously, with TikTokers and content creators, schedules not only are the bane of all D&D players, but especially if you work in a field where your time is literally money in a way. But
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
no, but it's
Yeah.
been since 2020, so about 3 years, honestly.
I love how you've reinforced the trope of theater kid to D&D nerd.
It
So
works so
many
well,
people.
though.
It's a wide
Yes.
path. It's
It
so good.
really does. It's like,
Yes.
that's how I would try to get my friends to try to play. I'm like, it's literally theater, but you roll dice. And they're like, really? Isn't there like a lot of rules? I'm like, don't worry about the rules. Just sit down and here's your sheet. This is your character. Play that kind of thing.
I love
And
you like shoving 1,000 pages of core rule books behind your back while you say, no, it's fine. It's
Don't
fine.
worry. Shh, don't worry about that.
what's a rage? Just do it. Just say you're gonna
Yeah,
go into
just
rage.
say
Okay,
you're
good.
gonna do it. Go
Yeah, I'll
nuts.
take care of the rest. I love that you
Exactly.
said the dice are the director, Quincy. I've never thought about it like that, but
Mhm.
that's an incredible insight, and it has changed the way I kind of view the game. Like, I've thought about the role the dice play, but I feel like that's the best way I've heard anybody put it into words. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. All right. As far as running games, have you run games, Quincy? And if not, are you planning on giving it a try anytime soon?
Yeah, actually, I've run a couple games, one offline, and my first one was actually streamed. It was several months ago, where Jason was one of my players,
Mhm.
and I ran a basic level 1 game where my players, the party, were I used a module from Candlekeep. I like it because it was like all put together. It was also synced. Everything was there, and I'm like, it's more of a mystery. I don't have to worry about combat. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, we'll just go into it. It'll be a bit more theater of the mind, but we ended up using the maps anyway. And nervous as heck. Didn't, kind of just like, what do I do? But then I could even feel myself like halfway through, just kind of get into the rhythm of feeling it out. I'm just like, okay, so this is what happened. I'm just gonna roll with it. I know where they need to go next, but having the liberty to on the fly change things
Mhm.
and like having everyone literally be okay with that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun. So the next one that I ran was one that I wrote for what we're doing for Convergence, and I bullied some
Ooh,
friends into playing. I'm
yeah.
like, hey, you want to play a one shot? This is what I'm going to be doing for Convergence. So like, yeah, sure. And so we took about 4 hours to do that, and then afterwards I was like, okay, roast it. What was wrong with it? And they're like, and they were very, very gracious about it, and they were just like, uh, I've learned that I'm a very generous DM, where I like to give handouts and I like to give power ups, like overpowered power ups to my players, just to see what would happen and to let them play with it. So like
Yep.
something that I came up with was this cookie of fortune. It was a fortune cookie that you roll a d20 and something literally wild happens. Like, not something like a prestidigitation thing, but it could cause like an earthquake. And
Oh, jeez.
that's
Kind of
what
like
happened.
wild magic.
Yeah,
That's the
wild
Oh,
difference
magic
between you.
fortune
Yeah.
cookies. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
very, very focused wild magic, and it was a lot of fun just to see what would happen. But yeah, I love being the game master, and I like being in that position to be able to do that. I feel like it for my brain that kind of like wants to focus on multiple different things at the same time, it just really appeals to
Y-
that. I
Yes.
haven't had a lot of opportunities to do it much, but um definitely practicing and wanting to practice a lot more, especially for Convergence.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you're getting chances to play test that and really fine tune it, because I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Jason, how about you? Do you remember the first time you ran games, or do you kind of have a general memory? I don't want to press
Yeah.
your memory, since you're the oldest man alive. So
Yeah, no, let me pull those deep memories from the roots of the mountains. Yeah, the two things that come to mind of probably about the same time was a
Mhm.
sleepover with some high school friends after we had graduated, at to my friend's house, and running just something just like because we had nothing else to do and it was terrible, and then running something for some roommates in college when my roommate GM went home for the weekend, and I had made this whole thing based on an article from Dragon Magazine, which
Mm,
I used to love reading those, and I still have
R.I.P.
several of mine from the 90s,
Nice.
where trying to describe what are basically like robotic ostriches, that, but not calling them robotic ostriches because I didn't want to break the meta filter and have them kind of figure out what the heck this thing was with metal skin and metallic veins. And that went pretty well actually, because they were really confused, and that's probably due to my bad descriptions. But I think that game in particular in the dorm was what really got me the bug of like wanting to write my own stories, not just the story of my own character, but create a world and let people play in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then jumping back to when I got back into D&D, my kids were like 8 and 10, and the perfect age, because a friend of mine, a friend of mine's son bought the starter kit for Christmas, and he texted me. He was like, "Hey nerd, you know how to play this?" And I was like, yes I do. And he's a bigger nerd than I am. That's just not his fandom. And I was like, yeah. He said, "You want to come over a Saturday and run this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I did. As I was prepping, my kids were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going to run, a game for my friend Steve-O." And they're like, "Well, how does it work?" And I was like, "Okay, well, here." And I ran a game for them to see if they were old enough, and just had coin flips for the dice, because I didn't make them stats. And I forget which book it is, but it's that iconic cover with Moloch on the cover and like the red gem eyes on the burning brazier in his
Yeah, yeah.
lap.
Hmm.
I just set up that scenario, and there's also like lizard people in that scenario too, and I just created that for them, and they like beat the lizard folk, and they got the gem, and I was like, all right, that's where we'll stop. They're like, wait, no, what happens next? And I was like, you're invited to the barbecue. I mean, you can come to my friend's house, and
Yeah.
you can play too. And that, I think that just getting to see my kids love it so much really had me hooked. But yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, I can't wait for my little ones to be old enough to share it with
Oh
me. Right
yeah.
now, we're still playing dinosaurs on the floor and stuff, but
Mhm.
eventually we'll get there.
Yeah. It's like
I'm
one more
showing them the
year.
grid. Yeah,
Yeah, one more year, you just hand them a D20, like, "Hey, see if the T-Rex can bite the Stegosaurus." And they're
oh,
like,
he
"Oh,
finds them already.
uh-huh.
Whenever I leave my stuff out after a game night, he'll like wake up and he'll be like, "Dad, you play with the dice, right?" Like, "Yeah, I do." And he's like, "Well, when are your friends coming over again?" Yeah, he loves it.
Oh,
So
that's
he's
awesome.
already fixated on the dice. It won't be that hard of a
Oh,
sell, I'm
yeah.
sure.
They're so pretty."
They are. They are. All right. So the reason I started the show is because I love talking to DMs of all sorts of different experience levels and from all sorts of different places about their worst times running games behind the screen. So worst mistakes, worst like habits they formed that they've had to kind of teach themselves to break. And that's why the show is called How Not to DM. So I'd love to dig in a little bit into some experiences you've had or some stuff you've noticed you do in your games that you feel like are bad examples of how to run games and kind of the lessons you've learned from them. So yeah, we'll start with you, Jason. What are some examples from your
Oh,
past
good.
that you can think of how not to DM?
This, dear listener, is the part of the show where I get to put myself on blast.
That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I think back to my earliest times and some of my failures, I think like a lot of people, um, not being prepared enough, or being the it's equal and opposite reaction of being over prepared and kind of railroady, are the
Yes.
things that I have struggled, I think to a lesser degree these days. Quincy is one of my regular players, might go, no, you're still bad at that. uh, but
Don't let him do that. He's a great DM. He's one of my favorites.
Thanks, man. But that's the struggle been, especially in the past. Harkening back to that one sleepover, I remember I just was like, yeah, I'll just make stuff up as I go, and just had nothing laid out. And just realizing that you don't have to have specific things planned, but you have to have the world in your head
Mm.
and know what's happening. And so when like the eye of the party turns to a new direction, you already know generally what's going on there. You don't have specifics, but you have a general good idea.
Mhm.
And just kind of having those like from the movie, right? Like 12% of an idea of what's going on over there in that hamlet. And then over preparing of just like getting so wrapped up in this opus that you're writing and it's pure genius and art. Isn't this amazing? And you're like, no, it's not. Listen, chill. You only do part of the story. The rest of it is for the players, and you're there to, as one of my friends a long time ago described it, ice skating backwards. And I think that's the real thing. That's the analogy that's helped me the most is my friend's Canadian, a huge hockey fan, go Habiteurs, and said like, the best skater on the ice is the referee because he has to skate just as fast as the players and backwards, and he can't miss a single body check or slap shot or anything. And so he has to be the best skater out there. And so as a DM, I've tried to adopt that idea of just be ready to roll with the punches, see what's going on, who's checking out, all those things, and find ways to really make the players feel successful and make them feel like they're the heroes that they're playing. Um,
Hmm.
and I know that for me, maybe especially on TikTok, I have a reputation of like being the rules guy. I know all the rules, and I always say like, yeah, I know all the rules, but I'm not a rules is written kind of person. And I
Mhm.
think, especially in the last year or so, I've even become less so. Whereas, like, yeah, I know that's what the rule says, and yeah, I can change it, but I'm not going to change it just to change it. I'm going to change it because it's going to make a better story and make a better spotlight for this player and character, because that's going to be a better experience for everyone and a better experience for the person.
Mm.
And so I think I wish I had learned that earlier, that your real goal is to tell a great story. And as a game master, you tell great stories by working with the other half of your storytelling team, which is the party, and being willing to metaphorically throw out pages of notes, because I don't write pages of notes, but um, in service to do that. And it's not, and I know some people would be like, well, no, that's like, bowing down to the players or just letting them have a Mary Sue kind of adventure. But it's not that. It is, this is a new way to challenge them, a new way for them to struggle, a new way for them to shine. It doesn't mean they'll succeed, but they will shine, because
Mm.
success and shining and being really good at your character are two totally different things.
Mm.
It's like having a sword that makes you undefeatable, but that doesn't mean you can't die.
Mm.
Those are two different things.
That's fascinating, and I like that a lot. I feel like it's kind of like a cliche, but knowing all the rules means you know which ones you should break and why, like, that
Yes.
that kind of thing, right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
err on that side myself as well.
Yeah, I really think that, because I'll often see this, especially in social media. People are like, "Well, here's my homebrew," and I'm all, "That's actually an alternate rule that was available to us in the printed material. Did you not?" Okay, I mean, good for you. Like, you thought of it independently, like calculus, great. But I'm a big fan of like knowing all this stuff. Then, like, yes, then I can build from there to what suits my needs and my temperament and thoughts and ideas. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you can't be great at telling these collaborative stories without knowing the rules. I just think that it's a resource that's available that, at least for me, has been really invaluable. So,
Yeah, totally, totally.
mm.
What about you, Quincy? I know you said you've run a few games here and there, and these memories may be a bit more fresh as you're trying to do your playtesting and stuff. So, what are some examples you can think of, mistakes you made or stuff that you would try to do differently if you
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I don't think that. Well, let me preface by saying this. You have two. I guess I could say. I guess I can claim that I'm a DM now, having done it a couple times.
Yes.
Yeah, you are welcome.
It's kind of like saying you're a pilot after you land your first plane kind of thing. You technically are, or like you're a doctor after you get it. You just are. Doesn't matter how much experience, you just get the title. But like I am the baby DM. You have two experienced other. I'm sitting with two experienced and wonderful DMs here. But for myself, I could probably talk to new DMs or people or
Yeah.
players, forever players who are like, I want to try. Like, I don't know what to do, but I want to try.
Yes.
My biggest thing going into it was, and I caught myself really early on in that first session of trying to railroad because I was like, I want because I know obviously the whole story that was written down in the Candlekeep Mystery, and I'm like, okay, I want them to experience this moment at this part of the story, but they have to get there, so I have to make them get there because like it's going to be a great time for them, but they need to get through this one room, and they wouldn't do it, and I'm like, well, I could just make it happen now, and it did, and it was one of those things. It just like allowing your expectations of what you think should happen to flow with what the players are doing, like, and it made it even more interesting. Like they were just exploring and having a good time, then suddenly this bookshelf falls over and these books start swarming at you and they attack you. Roll for initiative. What? And it just kind of added that extra tension and pressure that just they weren't expecting, and I was like, well, I want them to have it, and I want them to throw something at them. And yeah, so like it wasn't necessarily, they didn't have to go through a particular room or say a particular thing or step on a puzzle block to make something happen. The moment felt right. I kind of just went with it a little bit, but also learning to, again, not railroad, because I know as a player I don't like to be railroaded. So I don't know. I guess I could pretty much everything. Like if you know what you like about Dungeons and Dragons and you as a player what you enjoy, add that in when you DM. And it's not as complicated as you would think. And like again, you don't need to know all the rules. Like I don't, because
You don't.
the players probably know half of what they should do. You know about half of what they can do. And somewhere about that you'll make a great story. But that's that failing forward is half the fun. And I think that if we as new DMs give ourselves more grace than what we aspire or compare ourselves to be, it'll be a much more enjoyable time, and our players will have a great time. Because I asked my one players after the testing game, and I was like, how was it? And they're like, did you have fun? Like that's my biggest thing, is like, did you have fun?
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, absolutely, like yeah. And I'm like, okay, so that big check mark's done. Now let's get to the fine nitty-gritty details of like how to improve. There's always ways to improve, but as long as you're truly enjoying it and you give your players moments to shine individually, I think it really resonates with them because they get that spotlight, and I feel like everyone wants that moment to shine a little bit. So that goes back to more of my stuff, just like letting everything happen for a reason.
Yeah, I think it's a big part. You're absolutely right, Quincy, that the barometer, like the test is, did you have fun? Like that's the goal. And so long as everyone's having fun, that's the point. And if they're not, then you adjust and you figure out what they like to do and you start mixing that in and give them their moment. Exactly.
100%.
Yeah. It reminds me of, there's this thing that I have been saying for maybe 3 years now, especially to brand new tables where I've never played with the person before or the people before, where I'll start with a little like almost like speech, like it's Independence Day or something, and say, the goal of this game is to have fun on both sides of the table. You have infinite choices to make, and I have infinite worlds to create. And we each need to use that infinity to make sure all of us at this table are having fun. And remember, I'm not the bad guy. I just run the bad guys. Let's have fun. And that has gone really, really well, because even if people are experienced players or even new, it resets the tone and resets the expectation of, oh yeah, we're having fun, but not at anyone else's expense. And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the games I play these days are streamed. And so we're also now aware of this third entity, which is the audience. And so you're like, okay, well, we need to, there's going to be shenanigans. It just happens. But also, too, maybe we should, look behind that bookcase and see if there's a door there. And so there becomes this beautiful tension of shenanigans plus moving the plot forward. And it's not just the DM's responsibility.
Yeah. I like that speech, Jason, and I'm going to steal that because I'm going to be running some games for a convention in March here in Utah. Awesome. And I've run for a few new people, but usually I know them beforehand and have talked to them. Like I know them at least a little bit, but this will be my first time running for complete strangers I've met like 5 minutes before. So that, I like that, and I'm going to steal that. Welcome to Quickfire Chaos! Okay, so Quincy, I have 4 tables for you to roll on. They're going to tell you what kind of NPC you're going to play. And, well, I mean, if you prefer, we could do a scene at Quincy's Tavern. That would be kind of fun. But kind of like
I'm willing
roll.
to roll for an NPC. Let's see what happens.
Just rolling.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is the voice. And that's not an accent. It's just like kind of how they sound. I'm not going to make you do an accent. You can... I mean, I guess I've heard your Quincy accent, so that's something. But
Yeah.
anyway. So this is the first table.
92.
Never confident in what they're saying, even if it's something they know for sure. I'm probably bleeding out, or the mayor's house may be down the road and to the left.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
do with that what you will. Okay, the next table is a trait, something about their personality or the way their mannerisms.
Okay, the one right above that, 81.
Perfectionist. Well, that's going to be interesting.
Wow, that's a dichotomy right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
A propensity for being displeased with anything that is not perfect or does not meet extremely high standards. I mean, I could see how it works.
Yeah, I could.
All right. The next one is their job. So where we might find them, what they might be wearing, what they might be doing, kind of give you an idea.
Okay. 40.
Artisan. So I'll let you decide what your craft is.
Okay.
Then lastly, I have 2 different ones. One is city quests and one is fetch quests. So you're going to be playing this NPC. Jason and I are going to make up random characters. We're going to show up either because you called us there, or maybe we're just walking down the street and you need us to do a job for you. Do you want to send us on a city quest or a fetch quest? What sounds more interesting? Fetch quest is like outside of the city walls usually.
Yeah, we'll send you on a fetch quest.
Okay, let's do it. Okay. Last roll.
15.
A little girl's lost a doll, which was stolen by some mischievous fae. You need us to go get this doll for some reason that you get to fill in the gaps for. This is your theater training coming into play. Okay, so Jason, now we just need to like quickly make up characters. I think I will play a dwarf with a big old axe on his back.
I was going to say dwarf too. I was going to say a dwarf wizard, like the hardy kind, but so he like wears like chainmail under his robes, because like that just feels comfortable to him, because like, you know, I don't know, dwarves are born in chainmail, I guess, or practically. Probably, yeah, probably that's science. That's fantasy science. So I want to do a dwarf wizard, and who is a little bit sheltered, both metaphorically and literally, because this is like first like adventure topside.
Okay, and I guess I'm the one who's kind of like the streetwise one showing you the ropes a little bit. But you're definitely the brains of the operation.
All right, you two, dwarven brethren, step outside off the road, and you come up to the front of Quincy's Tavern. The doors open, you hear bustling and chattering on the inside, and in your hands, you have the help wanted kind of poster, the help adventurers needed poster of like and on the paper said to show up at Quincy's Tavern between, dinner time and sundown to get your quest, and that you will go to the table in the far corner with the single individual sitting at the table. You walk through the tavern doors, and you're greeted by the bartender and many familiar faces, some unfamiliar to you, say hello and greetings, but you're on a mission, and you go to the table in the corner. In the corner, what you'll see is kind of a shorter figure, big hood covering their face and visage, but you get the scent, like the quick waft of just maybe vanilla or like strawberries from this corner. You're not sure why, but this is a very short individual. You're presuming maybe halfling or possibly a fellow dwarf. But you walk up to the table, and what do you say?
It appears that this is the corner booth that we're supposed to be sitting in. So do you mind if we sit here, friend?
Who are you supposed to be? And you hear this like kind of high-pitched little voice of what you know to be is a child, like an actual child. And the hood goes back, and these blonde curls, very thick curls, bounce down from it, and out from the cloak comes this probably 7 or 8-year-old child dressed in bright pink, and you can definitely tell where now the vanilla and strawberry smell comes from. And she looks at you with baby blue eyes and just gives both of you like the weirdest stare, like she's judging you from head to toe to that bulbous dwarvish nose.
gonna stand up a little straighter when I see she's like eyeing us up and down.
Yeah,
Trying to suck in the gut a little bit.
Yeah, I look at her and look at you, Derek, and look back like, now, is it just me, or is it real hard to gauge ages of non-dwarf races, like, and lineages? Because she seems mighty young to me. I mean,
Who are you supposed to be? Are you supposed to be the warriors and heroes for hire?
Yeah, that's us. Warriors and heroes for hire.
You don't
And I
look
kind of like
like
elbow you a little bit, like stand up straight, act the part.
oh yeah, stand up straight and like kind of misread the cue and just like do prestidigitation, like just sparks.
you farted.
No, that I don't know if you know much about dwarf physiology. It doesn't come out of our hands.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I mean we're here to help people who need helping. And we got the thing.
I'll hold out the sheet of paper for her to see. Yeah, we're supposed to be here. I promise.
I suppose you will do. Probably not, but you'll be fine. This is a very dangerous quest. And she kind of stands up, and she doesn't go up very tall, and like you can tell that she's like on tiptoes on her stool, and barely makes like eye level with you, even as dwarves. Definitely halfling, a halfling child. This is a very dangerous quest, she says. Are you willing to brave the dangerous magic of the dark entities of the multiverse?
Or we could get like a couple, like dozen wolf pelts or something.
There's no time! And she kind of just freaks out. She's like, my doll has been stolen! It probably was yesterday, but I think it was this morning, but I'm not really sure, and it was just gone! And I need people to get it back for me. You are the ones who answered the call, and you must be the ones to bring my dolly back to me.
Yes, we're the ones. We're ready for the job. We can handle dangers. We've seen plenty of dangers.
Alrighty. Good.
Have you checked under the bed?
Well, that's a great question. Have you checked?
It was just gone!
Oh, fair enough. All right.
You can kind of tell she's a little frazzled and she doesn't like all these questions, but at the same time, I feel you get the sense that this is a power trip that might be going to her little blonde curls. And she's like, so, did you take on the quest or not?
I mean, yeah, I think, right?
We are prepared, Mrs. to avenge this wrongdoing and return your doll.
That's right. Okay. And as you can see on the wanted poster, the payment will be made afterwards, because I don't trust adventurers. And you guys look shady.
Why?
That's not shade. That's just a little bit of coal dust we had on us. It's different. But does your doll have a name? Does she answer to something?
What does it look like?
It's a teddy bear.
Oh, well, that's altogether
Its
different.
name is Teddy, or
why would you name a bear Teddy Bear Teddy? That's like naming a dwarf Dwarfy. That's just dumb.
Dwarfy's actually my middle name, but anyway,
that's
carry
dumb.
on.
I pushed my stuffed dwarf plushie deeper in my bag named Dwarfy, just like, yeah, that's weird.
Right, what's Teddy's name then? What's the bear's name?
Bear.
Oh,
Okay.
that's fair enough. Yeah.
But he dresses just like me.
He got a paint dress on?
Of course he does. He's fashionable.
Well, I hear it's very in this year. Now, has he got the ringlets and all as well?
No, that's stupid. He's a bear.
No, that's true. I mean, I've heard about things like hairdos that are fancy with heat and curls. Never mind. All right. Yeah. Can you point us in the right direction of where to go? I mean,
do you have any culprits in mind? Yeah.
And you can kind of see that she just like kind of looks around and is not sure about anything from this point now. Just like, and you kind of see her eyes dart over, and she looks at this other table who's minding their business completely, has no idea what's going on. And it's like it's just an adventuring party who came in and they're just having a good time and they're just celebrating. And she kind of looks at them, looks back at you guys, looks at them, looks back at you guys,
and doesn't say anything else.
Well, we could start with your house and then go on from there. Look for clues, perhaps?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you get it back to me by bedtime?
Pull out my sundial.
It's about like 30 minutes till like
Yeah.
presume this child's bedtime would
I pull up my sending stone, but I'm not getting a network connection here.
You got 2 runes out of 5.
Oh
2
no,
runes.
it's like that old rune. It just says it translates to edge. We will do our very best, and if we can't get them back to you before bedtime, Bear, we'll take half payment because
That's good.
lateness. Now,
I
what
think it was on the crossroads outside.
crossroads?
Yes.
All right, we'll start there.
All right. Okay.
Goodbye, adventurers. And you kind of see her whoosh around in her seat with her cape, and then she just kind of like hops down, and you kind of see her little head above the table as she skitters away. But she's gone. She walks away.
Well, this is a great first job for you. I think this is going to be very beneficial for you at learning the ropes, friend. Yeah.
I look at my friend here and go, "We're going to get paid in lollipops, aren't we?"
Yeah, probably. But you know, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I like lollipops, but
That's better than exposure. So,
I mean, yeah, at least it's tangible, unless they're made from, the elemental plane of dark. Never mind. Anyway, let's go find this bear.
All right, let's
As
go.
you walk out the door, I'm going to presume your perception is just super high because she's obviously not very stealthy. But you can kind of hear her walk to that adventuring party she looked at, and you hear her be like, "The mischievous Fae will have 2 dwarves to eat tonight."
Oh, jeez.
And that's it.
Okay. Oh, wow. She's running a scam. Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
She was peeing on her foot and telling us it was raining for sure right there. And scene.
Incredible, Quincy. Incredible. Yeah, that's not the direction I would have taken it, but I'm so glad you did. That was perfect.
That's so good. Little girl with a power trip. She can command her first party of adventurers.
Okay, let's dive in now to your work and your upcoming projects. So first of all, we'll start with Quincy. Quincy's Tavern. It's been going since, by my research, 2019. It wasn't officially called Quincy's Tavern, but you were doing a TikTok of cleaning a glass to some Marvel sound.
Yeah.
And it has blossomed from there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Very wholesome and awesome content. So yeah, tell us where you got the idea and how did it morph into what it is today?
Oh gosh, to suffice it to say, late 2019, I was working a job that was paying the bills, but not much else. It was something that where, me being a super creative person, it didn't give me any freedom to kind of express myself that creatively. And I wanted to. Again, doing theater, I was really big into special effects makeup, the theater makeup for the longest time, but kind of just didn't have an outlet to really express myself creatively. I downloaded TikTok because no one that I knew had it at the time, and no one that I knew much about it. I kind of knew it from its very cringe advertisements that they had for the longest time. Like those weird musically kind of up and down, left and right, shaking the camera very dramatically kind of videos that lasted like 10 seconds. And I'm like, okay. And so I downloaded it off of a whim. I'm like, if I don't like it, I will delete it. Like I was at the point where a lot of people, the stigma was it's just for kids, it's cringe. And I'm like, well, I want to make my own decision, because what I was seeing at the time on Instagram was that fellow creators that I were mutual with would use TikTok to do their full on like character makeups and body paints and whatnot. And they would use TikTok to add to that content. Besides just taking video photos, they would do the lip sync videos. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of fascinating. So I downloaded it
and just kind of messed around with it, did my own little thing. But I saw a lot of cosplayers really having a grand old time with it, and people making their own OCs and putting their OCs in adventures and everything. And I'm like, okay, that kind of seems fun, wipe away your inhibitions and embarrassment and just kind of go with it and just have a good time. And I was like, let's try it. So I'll make an OC. We'll name him Quincy. We'll put him in a set that doesn't move, because a lot of these OC people would put their characters on adventures, and they would be like walking and things like that, and like you're in front of your closet like that. My immersion is broken. And I'm like, well, let's put this guy in a place that never moves, in a setting that never changes, that you always see him at the same thing. So I was like, well, let's put him behind a bar that seems the most theatrically standard. We'll call it Quincy's Tavern. I don't like the name, but we'll stick with it, and we'll go from there. And the first couple of videos, comparatively to my other videos, did much better. And just like with TikTok, and it's kind of for lack of a better term, rat training mentality of like, you reward them for doing something and they'll do it again. I was like, okay, we'll do more Quincy's Tavern stuff. And that kind of started to evolve. I wanted Quincy's Tavern to be this, if you've seen Arcane, the show on Netflix, this Vander's like character who's like this badass, no nonsense, like, you threaten the bartender and then everyone in the bar kind of like scooches up a little bit and pays attention to the people doing the threatening. I wanted him to kind of be like that type of a character, but I couldn't play that because that wasn't me, and I couldn't be that consistently. So I did a 180 and I made him a dork. So a lot of videos after that, it's just me literally in the heyday of TikTok with 15-second videos, lip syncing to cringe whatever, and just having a good old time with it. It evolved after that to more of affirmation type stuff, when you could do longer TikToks up to like 30 seconds and then up to a minute.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let's do original content, I guess. Let's maybe like talk to the camera as if it was a patron. Just because I couldn't find anything at the time that I wanted to make a video of as a sound, as a background sound. And that did also comparatively much better. And I was like, okay. So it just like progressively just evolved on its own through just like kind of what was essentially me needing a creative outlet, to then it becoming a place that people and myself really resonated with. It really became my favorite thing is that it became a safe space, and it became a safe space for me too.
Yeah.
I kind of like to say that because of the timing of just the growth and everything, I was in a very fortuitous spot, because when the world shut down in 2020, Quincy's Tavern essentially stayed open. And it became like where I could go through this character and be affirming, not in a toxic positivity way of like, everything's gonna be okay, you got this, it's gonna be great, but like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but you've gotten through worse things, you're still here, and you'll do it again, kind of thing. And I'm like, it became something where if ever I needed to talk to myself about something, I was able to talk to myself through Quincy, and it was able to be picked up by other people, and it resonated with them as well. So it's just a wonderful kind of like a circle that Quincy's Tavern is for me, of that me in a way helping myself helps others who help me to help more. It's a not a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's like it's a
Perpetual. I know
yeah,
what you're trying to say, but I can't think of it
A
either. What is the
vicious
word?
cycle of positivity.
yeah,
Yeah,
horrible.
a positive cycle,
But
feedback loop, but good
yeah,
feedback.
yeah,
Yeah,
in the best way. So that's a long-winded answer. I
yeah, it
apologize.
is. I was going to ask you both if you thought that the pandemic had influenced people's being drawn to positive content, and if you
Yeah.
had seen spikes in your viewership during that time. So yeah, what you're
Mm.
saying kind of confirms that. But yeah, I think that people really did need stuff like that. They needed people to be there telling them, yeah, things aren't okay, but you're going to be okay. And we've mostly all made it through. So
Yeah.
yeah. What about you, Jason? Critical Dice. I know you do a lot of different things. You make dice. You have, that's kind of the main business, but you make a lot of content and that kind of thing. You're
Yeah.
known for a few different types of content. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I might be one of the rare few people, and this is going to sound, I don't know, maybe crass, but like I started on social media, one, reluctantly, and two, for the sake of business. But because I knew I wanted to, I've always had side hustles and things. I've owned a
Uh-huh.
vending machine business. I've done web design.
Mm.
I've done a bunch of different things. And I was just like, well, I have this idea for a dice that I want to make, because that'd be really easy to make, where on the D20, instead of the one, it just says no. And I called them critical dice because these are dice that are critical of you. And I put them up on Amazon, I think. And then I was like, all right, well, I want to support this with social media, but I hated how a lot of people did that, where it was just nonstop, buy my stuff spam. And I was just like, no, I want to provide like relatable, actually useful content that has people coming back over and over to the stuff I'm making. And then occasionally I'll mention, oh yeah, and if you like my content, you can support me this way. And so I started writing these game hooks, and that's all because of my kids wanting to start playing,
Yeah.
because they wanted to play all the time, because I created monsters in more ways than one. And I was like, I can either go broke buying all the books, or I can write my own stuff. And they want to play so much because they have no responsibilities, that I'm going to run out of ideas. So I just started writing down these like little like 2-sentence story prompts, like a setup and a twist.
Mm-hmm.
And I started making those into game hooks, and there's almost 800 of them for free on my Instagram now after almost 5 years. And just had those available, and people really, really, really like them. And the Instagram account grew really, really fast. Um, and I almost didn't join Instagram because I was putting them on Facebook for a little while and no one cared. And then my wife said, you should be on Instagram. And I was like, all right, listen, I'm not young. I'm not cute. I don't have a cat. Why would I be on Instagram? And she's like, no, you should be on Instagram. And I was like, all right, fine. And it grew really, really fast.
Yeah.
And then another friend, 2 years ago now, almost to the day, our friend West and Arcane Anthems was like, dude, why
Mm.
aren't you on TikTok yet? And I'm like, same answers, because I'm not cute and I'm not 20. Like, why would I don't dance.
I don't have
He's like,
I don't
no,
have good hair like you, Weston. Yeah.
yeah, all my good hair is below my nose, like it's all down here. And he was like, no, seriously, dude, you got to come over. I'm like, all right, fine. And then I had to rethink, like, well, game hooks don't work over here, so I make all new content. And just like, okay, well, how do I obey that same principle of how can I give useful, thoughtful information that is actually helpful to people? And then occasionally I'll talk about dice and things that I sell. And kind of found a niche, and it's continually evolving. And it took me like a year to kind of really figure out what I wanted to be doing. And a lot of it happened by accident, as it always does, but mostly trying to figure out how to break the rules of D&D, in a fun, non make your DM quit kind of way, hopefully.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think when I first got into the hobby, your Instagram account was one of the first ones I followed,
Oh,
because I
wow.
was like, I want to start running games, so I need to like start thinking about adventure hooks. And I feel like I've used a handful of them in different games, but
Yeah.
yeah, I remember like following and being like, wow, there's so much inspiration I can get from these. And I
Yeah.
think that's really, yeah, you definitely
I've
you struck a
often
chord.
Yeah, I've often been surprised. I've had people who I follow and I really admire, who have told me that, hey, I when I got started, I used your game hooks, and I'm all like, I'm glad to hear that. That's really nice. I'm not gonna cry now. And I try not to extrapolate the math of like how many players have been exposed to my crazy ideas, and I'm like, that's a staggering number that I will not want to quantify. Thank you. But I'm just glad to help,
Yeah.
and to spur people on to making their tables. And that's why I kind of always say that my real goal is to provide resources to help you have more fun around your gaming table. And
Yeah, that's
that's what I
awesome.
try to stick to that.
So I want to hear about how you two met then. The convergence before the convergence. So how
I
did you
defer
meet? How
to
did you network?
Jason because he says that I tell it wrong.
I'm just saying that it is inconsistent with my memories, and
Sounds like a married couple.
being so aged, clearly my memory is impeccable.
Yes. All right. I defer to Jason. Jason, you say what happened.
Let's hear both versions. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then that means Quincy has to go first if we want both versions.
Really short version. Yeah. Let's hear it.
Do your short version, Quincy, then I'll do mine.
Jason came up to me while we went at Korean barbecue with a bunch of other content creators in 2021.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Gen Con. And I didn't know him from Adam. I had no idea who he was because he never showed up on my For You page at all. And we just started talking. He knew my stuff, and we just started talking about how our content impacts other generations, and how he mentioned that my content really he appreciated it because it was clean, it was good, and it was encouraging for his kids too, and which was a huge compliment. It is a huge compliment to me. It's like if I can make something that is something that can be shared through multiple generations, as well as it resonates with adults and children, and people find that it's safe for their families, that's a huge compliment to me. And so we started talking, and then somehow in that conversation it pivoted to where we started talking about business and about numbers and about profit margins and things like that. And later on he's like, let's talk. He's like, I run this dice subscription company, and it would be kind of just kind of pitching this out there. Would you be interested in maybe doing a collaboration where we do like a Quincy's Tavern month, like a theme around Quincy's Tavern? I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Still don't know who you are, but I'm willing to hear you out. And so we had probably over that weekend, probably like 2 or 3 meetings at length of multiple hour length conversations of what it was. And through that, I just got to know who he was, and just a little bit more about things that were going on. And I was like, you know what? I'm here to meet people. I'm here to network, and who knows where Quincy's Tavern goes, and who knows where this could be. So I was like, yeah, why not? Let's just see what happens. And I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to.
I have no notes. That was pretty good. Other than me asking some good questions in an awkward way, I have no additions to the story. And originally I was just like, he had some wax seal stickers he was giving out to people who were like, oh, I love your content. Oh, thank you so much. Here you go. And I was like, oh, these would be great to put in the bag. And he was like, well, how many would you need? And I was like, a lot. And he was like, oh, okay. And so we started talking, and then it turned into like March of last year being an all Quincy's Tavern bag, including the dice and a hand-drawn map of the tavern and a wax seal coin made of metal. And from there, it has spiraled wonderfully out of control. But yeah. Quince, I got no notes, man. That's pretty much how it happened.
Yeah, it was good. It kind of was one of those things where you approached me about a potential collaboration thing, and I was like, yeah, let's see what happens. And just through a conversation of just talking to him and getting to know the person rather than just the business kind of thing, I was like, okay, let's just see how it is. And then through this collaboration of a Quincy's Tavern dice bag, everything that Jason wanted to do, or like if I pitched him an idea, he's like, yeah, I think we can try to make that happen. And it did happen. And I was like, okay, this is someone that I can trust, and this is someone that cares about not only his brand, but also people that he collaborates with and the artists that he pays to commission and everything. And it's like, it's always on top of that. I'm like, okay, after that was done, what are we doing next? And then it just kind of like, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? And it just kind of stayed that way.
Yeah. In our professional relationship, my official title is enabler. I think,
but in a good way
somewhere.
Yeah.
No,
I'm glad I don't have to cast Zone of Truth and determine which of you is telling the truth. So this is good. This has been a good session, you two. I think we're making a lot of progress.
Making a lot of inroads and progress. I see a lot of healing happening here.
Yes.
So it's like someone's playing Song of Spiritual Rest. But what I love about working with Quincy, just to kind of tag on to that, is that I've discovered that we both will like swing for the fences, and the person who pitches the idea, the other person immediately goes, yeah, we could do that, but what about this and this? And then the person goes, oh, well, we could change it like this and this. And then the person goes, yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. And then we do. And I didn't realize that was weird until friends of ours watched us do that for an idea, and they were like, that's it? And we're like, yeah, why? What? They're like, so you're just going to do that now? We're like, yeah, like there's not a committee. Like we can just do it. And they're like, that's weird. That no one else does it like that. You know that, right? And we're like, no, we don't know that. Like, we're not going to hem and haw and worry and fret. We're going to make swings, and we have good ways of doing it and good friends and resources. And we're just trying to make the best things that we can make that make us both happy. And I think hopefully delight and enrich the community. So yeah,
I love it.
I enjoy working with this guy.
I love it. I'm glad that you're such a good match. So tell us about the Convergence that's happening. Well, I'll let you tell us like all the details too. But yeah, the Convergence. What is it? How did what went into it from like the planning to the the logistics and everything, and then yeah, tell us a little bit about how people can show up if they're interested.
To Quincy's point, we often ask ourselves, what's next? And in March of last year, I called him while he had a layover at JFK, I think, and said, hey, I've got this idea. And he's like, really? Okay. And so what the idea was is, like Quincy said, the number one comment he gets in all his videos is, this is my safe place, or this is my happy place. And the second most common comment is, when is the tavern going to be a real place I can visit?
Right.
And so we partnered with Evermore Park in Pleasant Grove, Utah, just south of Salt Lake City. And for a few days in the first week of May this year, Quincy's Tavern will be a real place that you can visit. And we are taking over the park, and the Lucky Griffin will be a place you can come and see a very familiar bartender behind the bar, and filled with a cast of characters that have quests for you that all feed into the canon of the Lucky Griffin, and all of the different head nods and factions and even things that have come up in the games that we play on stream. And just letting people, for just this very small window, where the world shifts and the planes align, and there's a convergence, and people can visit this fantasy place until we can figure out how to make it a full-time thing all the time, which is a much bigger question.
That's a
Yes, it
that's a
is.
5-year plan thing.
Yes,
It
it
is.
is.
But yeah, the Convergence was a total yes and thing. Jason calls me while I'm in
Yes.
the layover and is like, "Hey, what if you think about what if you thought about working with Evermore Park?" I'm like, "Well, I've talked to them. I know of them. I've never visited, but they wanted to work with me. You know, there was talks during the pandemic of like, hey, we
Yeah.
want to collaborate. We'd love to have you out here sometime." But it was one of those things where like I never really got back to them. Also, the world was very unstable at the time, so it
Yeah.
probably was obviously better and safer that way anyway. But they were still open to it. And Jason and I both got tagged by multiple people from our communities who knew both of us of like, look at this. And Evermore Park was like, hey, if you have an event, or like you're a podcaster or something like that, or you want to use our facilities, let us know, hit us up. And Jason hit them up and was like, what if we did a Quincy's Tavern Day at Evermore Park? And I was and to yes and that, I'm like, okay, well, what about this? And I'm sure people in the D&D community have heard something like D&D in a castle, and
Uh-huh.
I had the wonderful opportunity to go out and experience that at in England, and to be with the dungeon masters there, and just the luxurious experience that was. But it is a very high price tag. It is a very high ticket item, not only for an American to get a plane ticket, but also to the lodging there, and just the sundry items as that. I'm like, is there anything like that in America? Like, does do things like that exist besides LARP weekends and kind of, I don't know, those done by celebrity DMs for an exorbitant amount of money for like a weekend? I'm
Right.
like, besides that, is there something like that, but that's realistic, that is maybe like a week-long event? And there wasn't. And I'm like, well, what if we did that at Evermore Park? To yes, and what Jason was saying. And he's like, let me get back to you. Talks to Evermore Park. They're like essentially down for it. And then we start brainstorming of like the schedule, what that would look like. And suffice it to say, what we want to do is we want to take, we rented out the park for a couple days to bring a few to kind of mimic that high ticket item event where you can play with these, I don't want to call them celebrity DMs, but I guess that's the way you can kind of
These
Notable.
well-known, these
Yeah.
notable and well-known DMs
Yeah.
social media.
from Twitch and social media.
Yeah,
Mhm,
people that you've
mhm.
probably recognized, especially if you're deep into the D&D world. And
Yeah.
so we established a way for people to come and meet these established DMs and to play and hang out and have a good time, but also it within the backdrop of Evermore Park, which is in itself an established fantasy
LARPing park, theme park,
Yeah.
full with its own fantasy style Victorian buildings and cast of characters and actors who are super talented in what they do.
They really
It was
are.
like, let's do D&D and also LARPing at the same time. Let Evermore shine for what it is on the weekend and have a little bit of, a private event for, friends of ours as well, content creators, as well as, these guests of ours. So kind of like have our cake and eat it too, actually be able to get the
Yeah.
best of both worlds. And Evermore was so down. Evermore was like, yes, let's do it. I think that'd be a good time. And the timing of putting it in the springtime just seemed to work out for a lot of us. It's also like gorgeous weather at that time in Utah. Like when we went to go
Yes, it
visit last
is.
May, it was beautiful. Like there may have been like a couple raindrops in the early morning, but then by midday it was like clear and sunny, and obviously the mountains in the background are gorgeous.
They're still green at that time of year, yes, before they turn brown and die. Yeah, it'll be really beautiful. I have a view of the mountains from my backyard,
Mhm.
similar mountains, and yeah, so that it is a beautiful
Yeah.
time of year to visit. Not
It's
too hot,
lovely.
not too cold. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's a
you've been
really
then.
beautiful day.
You've toured the facilities. You know what
Yes.
it's like. Yeah, I
Yeah.
imagined you would
Multiple
have before
times.
you kind of done that. Yeah. So, um, it's going to the Lucky Griffin Tavern is going to be in the main tavern building. They called it Vander's Keep. It was open to the public, but I think they probably were.
So the tavern is going to be in the park itself, because they have
Oh,
a
okay,
tavern in the park called like the
right,
Leaky Kettle or something that will become
okay,
the Lucky Griffin for the event.
So we're gonna
Vendors,
soft change it.
yeah,
Essentially, we're gonna kind of soft
we're
we're
going to
gonna put our
redress it.
sign up. We're gonna redress it. We're not trying to like completely change Evermore Park for a weekend,
right.
but we want to we're going to be there. We're going to make it kind of an event of like,
Yeah.
Quincy's Tavern is visiting Evermore Park for the weekend. Come see us, check us out. And the tavern suddenly has our sign up and our banners and everything. And so,
Yeah, our
Okay.
fingerprints will be all over it. And so Vander's Keep, you're right, used to be a restaurant,
Uh-huh.
and now it's an event center. And so
Yeah.
we're getting to use that as well for some things
Okay. So, but the
during the
tavern won't be
event.
in there. I thought it might be.
Right.
It's a really cool building, regardless.
It is.
So,
It's a
but
gorgeous
yeah,
building.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
whoever's coming will get to see all that. Yeah.
yeah. So the it's the first week of May of this year. So in 111 days as of this recording,
Not
because
that you're
I'm not
counting or
counting.
anything.
No,
Yeah.
of course not, not at all. And so the big event on the weekend is May 5th and 6th. And Evermore Park is open from 6 in the afternoon until midnight, and
and
you'll be
those are
able to do,
extended hours.
yeah. Yeah, from when we first did it, yes, extended hours. So they're opened up a little later for us, and all the stuff you expect from Evermore Park, with the axe throwing and archery and the battle arena and the train, which I still am so amazed they have a train, and all the cast of characters in the buildings. We'll be doing a live Q&A with Quincy in the town square for about an hour each of those 2 nights. And then also, if you've been there before, Evermore has these different factions they put on display for the different seasons, and you can go on quests from these real life NPCs and join a faction. And so all the factions will be the factions from the Lucky Griffin, with kind of thematic quests for all of that. So you can, join the Dragon Watch, or the faction from the Lucky Griffin, or the others as well.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's going to be a really good time. And then the 2 days before that is the VIP event, which is sold out. Where basically, while the park's closed, we're putting D&D games with dungeon masters of note all throughout those awesome buildings through the park, for a relatively small number of people to play D&D with new friends, and people whose dungeon mastering skills are well known. So it's going to be a great time, and a lot of those same friends who are the DMs are sticking around for the weekend. One person even told me, "I'll come only if I get to dress up in my armor and hang out for the weekend." And I'm like, "Yes, yes, one shot questers, you can do that." And then a lot of, I mean, as you know, Derek, that there's so many creative and nerdy people in Utah. There is a disproportionate number of content creators that are in the Utah area, or very close by, and so we'll have a
Mhm.
lot of our friends coming by to hang out. And so if you just want to have a giant nerd party and you love TTRPGs and you're on any kind of social media, this is the thing for you. And the tickets are still available, and they are really reasonably priced, I think. So it should be a
Yeah,
good time.
they're not much more than normal price for admission, and you're getting
Yep.
all of this extra stuff. Like you said, you've got the live Q&A, you've got the specific Lucky Griffin quests, and as well as being able to rub shoulders with all these really cool people too. So yeah, it's $50 for either Friday or Saturday, and it's $80 for both. Like you said, 6
Yep.
to
Midnight.
midnight.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm going to definitely try to make it at least one, if not both days, pending childcare and other responsibilities I have to take care of. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what you both have done.
Nice.
Thanks, man. We're excited to see it actually happen.
Yeah, all that hard work. Okay, so the last question I love asking before we wrap up and kind of give our social media handles and stuff is your words of advice, wisdom, encouragement to people out there. So given both of your expertise, I'd love to hear some advice for DMs and GMs, like one or two things that you can think of, and then also some advice for people who've thought about creating content or who, or anything like that, and haven't or maybe stuck or just looking for some encouragement in making something they're interested in or excited about.
Oh gosh, this is we Jason and I have done like hour-long conversations with people with
I
just
know.
this one thing alone.
I'm thinking about it,
Um,
going, man, which one point do we pick?
and that isn't to necessarily boast, but it's something that we're very passionate about. We just love talking with other creators
Yeah.
and creative minds of just like growing and bettering each other within the sphere, especially in the D&D community, where from my experience, it's just been, or the TTRPG community in general, just incredibly encouraging and accepting and just constantly lifting each other up in the best way possible. I would say that if you are a new and aspiring DM or GM, or you're thinking about doing content creation, uh, one of the biggest things that I could say to you is, realistically, your content is not for everybody. And I think you should go in with that reality and that realization. I think being real with yourself and knowing that perfection is a lie. It is an unachievable desire and golden egg that will sometimes rob you of you doing your best and enjoying what you're doing in the journey. My biggest thing is that consistency is going to be your biggest friend, but also being true to yourself in terms of, if you truly enjoy making that content, don't force yourself to spend time doing something to please that you don't enjoy doing, to please people who don't even know you.
Yes.
As long as you are truly enjoying the content you're creating, whether it's reviews or making tips or tricks or min-maxing advice or what have you, or throwing it back for the real ones, as long as you're truly enjoying it, people will resonate with that and people will see that. I never expected that wholesome or affirmation content in a fantasy tavern would do well, and it's not for everybody. Some people are like, I get secondhand embarrassment from it. I'm like, I understand. I'm not offended by that. I'm not. It's just that content's not for you. And but there's awesome other content that I could probably do, or that other people do, that I could defer you to. So realize that what you do is not for everybody. If you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. And to truly enjoy what you're doing, because if you're passionate about it, you will find people who are just as passionate, who are attracted to that aura that you provide.
I get that same secondhand embarrassment comments whenever I do cosplay on my videos. So my biggest cosplay is a hat, glasses, and a beard. I completely agree with you. I mean, the two things I would say, Quincy, is on the content creation side, and you and I have talked about this publicly as well as privately, that it really is about, you have to know your why, why you are doing this. Because if you don't start with that basic question, you will never be able to figure out if you have achieved what you set out to do. You'll never know if you can answer the question, am I successful? Because that is an open-ended question that has an assumed answer that is rarely the real answer. Right. And so until you know why you're doing it, you will never be able to find your own personal success, and you'll never be able to truly be happy or even flourish making the things that you make. So you have to start with why you do it. Are you doing this for fun? Are you doing this for encouragement? Are you doing this because you want to make a career out of it and you want to leave your unfulfilling job? All of those are fine wise, no problem. Or are you just so creative and you have no outlet, you're like climbing the walls? Then great, know why you're doing it. When it comes to people who run games, Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, Monster of the Week, is that if you are starting out being a GM, you can do it. Because if you can create a character for yourself to play, you can extrapolate that out to a few characters of the NPCs. Hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people have done it before you. And my biggest recommendation is play with people who love you, because they will be honest and they will be gentle. If you don't have that option, play with complete strangers at a convention, because this is how it works. They're strangers. They don't know you. It doesn't matter what they think. Or you're playing with friends. They know you. So it's fine. So it's going to be okay. You can do it. Just take the plunge.
Amazing. Thank you so much, both of you, for your words of advice. I know they resonate with me, and I hope they resonate with some people out there listening as well who've been thinking about it, or who have been feeling down, or just looking for a reason to keep doing what they love. So much appreciated. To wrap things up, where can everybody find you? And then, other than the Convergence, what upcoming projects do you have that you want to share?
So the biggest thing we have coming up is the first week of May, the Convergence. You can find information and tickets at theconvergence.events online. And the 1 day and 2 day tickets for the big event on the weekend are still available. And we'd love to see you there in just outside Salt Lake City in Utah in May. And you can come by the tavern and maybe get a glass of cider or a hot chocolate. You can find more about the stuff that I'm doing at thecriticaldice.com or at Critical Dice on Instagram and for some reason TikTok.
You can find me at Quincy's Tavern on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, as well as Quincy LK on YouTube and TikTok. Every Friday, I've taken the plunge to do my own podcast, the Quincy's Tavern podcast. That's also available on Spotify and YouTube through video vlogs, which has been so much fun, and it's been a blast. But I guess after Convergence, the big thing that I got going on is the cookbook. Quincy's Tavern official cookbook is currently in the final stages of editing right now. It's going to be moving to formatting here soon. There is, from my last count, there was 74 recipes. So over 70 recipes, give or take. And every recipe essentially, for the most part, has some kind of story to go with it, or some kind of short lore that expands the world of Quincy's Tavern. So to my community and people who've been waiting ever so patiently, it is very close. We're hoping to, I was originally hoping to have the Kickstarter going in, at the beginning of February, but that just with timing and just scheduling and everything, it logistically, I think more time is necessary and needed. So we're kind of looking at possibly doing it after Convergence. That way we can focus on one big project and then kind of shift gears on the second one. But so that's just some of the things that I have going on.
You guys, I've read it and you're not ready. You guys, you are not ready. This book is so good. This book is so good.
I am an avid cooker and baker and trier of new recipes, so I cannot wait either. I'm really excited to try them. I love baking stuff and making stuff for my D&D party when I can, like when I've got some extra time, and we make some treats when we're all coming together. So I have a feeling there will be a few really good ones in there for that.
That's kind of what the idea was, very tavern-like kind of home-cooked type meals that are good for a party or, your D&D group and everything. But apart from that, you'll probably see us at Gen Con this year. If you head to Indianapolis, Indiana, we'll be there. I think we'll try to have a booth and whatnot. But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, both of you, for joining me. I'm really excited for Convergence, excited for the cookbook, excited for all of the other stuff that you have coming up. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, share some wisdom about running games and about content creation, and really excited to see what you both come up with in the future that none of us know just yet, but is surely on the horizon.
I'm so excited. Thanks for having us, Derek. It's been an honor. Thanks for taking your time to have us here.
It's been great.